focus in on the faith story of the students first.
Yep, good.
And allow them that window to open and for that breeze to come back out of them. And because then they're going to say, hey, together we need to share the gospel as a club next week.
What kind of soil are you preparing inside your heart and inside your school for the week that's about to come? It feels almost more important than Invite Week if I was just speaking out loud, right?
Yeah.
Just going for it.
Working with the local church to take the hope of Christ to every student in the United States. This is First Priority. Now here are your hosts, Steve Chirico and Brad Skelling.
Well, Brad, welcome back to the podcast.
It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Sitting in a room with friendly fire on a regular basis.
That's right.
Frenemies.
Frenemies.
As Minio says, frenemies.
Which 2022, January, just have new resolutions to pick on each other.
Absolutely. You make it easy, man. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. That's my resolution for this year. Make your life a little bit easier. I know how difficult life is for you, and it's just my goal is to make your life happy.
Oh, for those who listen to the podcast and have not come to the First Priority America offices, anytime you do come, there'll be something misplaced or a bathroom sign on Brad's computer or just all sorts of things that are just totally messed up because Brad is always messing with someone in our office. Wait, is it you?
I don't feel bad about that often. But we actually had a guest in the office the other day, and he's like, there's no doorknob on the bathroom. It's the basement one that we have that bathroom thing still stuck on.
Oh, this just gives them reasons to come to to the offices
we really
and hang out.
Put bathroom signs on the basement doors. They'll fall down the stairs.
Well, man, second week of 2022.
Yes, it is a good week. It is warm in Nashville this week.
Thankful for that.
I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Unseasonably warm.
Correct. I hope it's really snowing outside when this actually launches.
And so last week we talked about Equip Week.
This week we talk about Prepare Week because we are walking through the 4-week cycle of our First Priority clubs, kind of those core values that we walk through each and every week. And just as a reminder, we are talking about EPIC here because that's what First Priority of America is pushing out. But our advisory council that we use also endorses hope and variations of that. We just ask that we know what's going on in those clubs so we can all walk in step together.
Yep. Be in step, be in family. That's
right.
Good.
That's right.
That's good.
So what is Prepare Week, Steve?
Yeah, Prepare Week is where we are preparing ourselves for the following week.
Correct.
We are helping students understand their missional call on their campus. Mm-hmm. And one of the great realities of First Priority, which makes it unique, is we are not showing up to preach a lesson as adults preaching to students. Mm-hmm. It's not youth group 2.
That's right.
We are showing up as coaches, and we are preparing students to walk fully in their call.
That's right.
Which is what attracts me to what FP is and does.
Romans 10:13-15.
Beautiful.
Beautiful feet.
Yep. Are the ones who bring the good news.
That's right.
So just the idea that students are missionaries, what does that draw you to as you think about students being missionaries on their campus?
Well, what does that draw me to? Well, it draws me to that most students don't realize that they're missionaries on their campus.
Now you're talking about Christian students.
Christian students.
Faith-filled, Christ-following, Holy Spirit-indwelled students.
Yep. They go to church every week and they feel like they having peace in Christ makes them, that does make them a Christian, right? But they don't know that they need to be a missionary. And again, that goes back to the Romans verse where, how can they preach unless they are sent? And so that is the responsibility of the adults. The students are not missionaries or having the call to missionaries because we're not sending them. That's on us. And so that is the real push for us, is to send them to the school as a missionary and help them identify that, hey, there's a lost and broken world. They already know this, that there's a lost and broken world around them, and they are looking for hope, and we need to send them to their school. And so Prepare Week is that opportunity to really reinforce that, to say, are you prepared as a missionary to share the gospel, and what are we going to do about it?
You bring a thought into my head as you're talking, which is the old statement, all roads lead to Rome, from back in that empire. Mm-hmm. And the idea that what if the First Priority Club is that central location, and every hallway, right, has an attachment to somebody in that club.
Correct.
They're going to leave there as missionaries, and they're going to find their freshman hallway, right? They're going to find their engineering hallway. They're going to find their auditorium hallway, right?
Yep.
And there is the place where the gospel is most prevalent. And
Correct.
are they prepared
Yep.
to be a missionary in that, or are they going to move to the other side of the road because they don't know how to help
Yep.
those who are hurting the most?
That's right. That's right. So there are two sides to this coin, right? Preparing ourselves individually
Yep.
and preparing together as a club.
Good.
And so to me, and then I'll ask you, preparing individually is going to the faith story document, going back to that to say, last week we talked about Equip Week. We're equipping them to talk about Jesus.
Yep.
But then what about my story? How does my story interact with Jesus? And we have a document on firstpriority.club in the resources section where what is that key word? What was life like for you before Christ? What is kind of your struggle? Is it loneliness? Is it anxiety? Is it fear, worry? Where is your bad word? And then what has Christ done to redeem that? And what is your new word? We really just try to make it simple again so that students are prepared to say, well, here's what Jesus has done in my life, right? And I don't worry because of Jesus. And I'm oversimplifying it, but it's preparing them and giving them those tools so that those words can come out of their mouth, right? Again, so it's not a place where they come and listen to a devotional and take it in. It's where they get trained and equipped to speak it back out again.
So our friend Corey Bendix, who's up in Washington, D.C., would say using those key words is about opening up the windows of your soul.
That's right.
Opening up the windows of things in your life. Because when you do that and you allow people to peer into the real you, then you actually get to see what Jesus is up to, right? When you remove the facade and open that just slightly, then people get to see, oh, you look like you have it all together, but in reality, without the movement of Jesus in your life, who is working through those things with you, I would have never known, right? But now, because I have a key word, loneliness, arrogance, whatever your key word is that you struggle with, right?
That's right.
Anxiety, right? Then I've opened up to a crowd of people that go, oh, you're letting me in.
That's right.
And that relationship side really begins to prepare people to go, well, now I need to hear the good news.
Correct.
Because you're real.
Yep.
You're authentic.
And as your people are ready for that, then together as a club you can do that. And using an analogy, I went to Fellowship Bible here in Franklin for a while, and one of the things that church wanted to do is to get out of debt. And not everybody's a Dave Ramsey fan, but one of the things that Dave recommended to that church leadership was, if you as a church want to get out of debt, then your people need to be out of debt.
Yeah.
Because then collaboratively they'll say, hey, we don't like this, I don't like this, and I don't want that for my church either.
Good.
So that's where I'm going here, is to say, hey, focus in on the faith story of the students first.
Yep, good.
And allow them that window to open and for that breeze to come back out of them. And because then they're going to say, hey, together we need to share the gospel as a club next week.
In Invite Week.
At Invite Week.
So then there are some specific things that as a club we have to prepare for Invite Week. What are those things?
Well, I mean, we can start at the top or the bottom, whichever you want. I'm not going to identify which, but I mean, you need to create that environment where people will feel welcome. And so, what kind of food are you going to serve? Who's going to go buy the food? What kind of environment are you setting up? Will there be some music playing in the background? And if so, who's bringing a little Bluetooth speaker and gonna play the music?
And who's the person that will talk to everybody and be at the front door as they high five, shake hands,
Correct.
do whatever's appropriate in that school setting, right?
Yep.
Make sure people feel like they are welcomed to come in.
Correct. Everybody knows that really hyper annoying kid in your club. And if you don't know who that is, it's probably you. Kind of a scenario,
nice.
Right?
That's good.
So you just found a purpose for that student to stand at the club and be super hyper, welcoming everybody to the club and getting them in the door.
Good. Good. All right. So what are some other parts that we have to prepare for?
Well, you need to have somebody who maybe leads an activity, because once the club does start, you want to warm everybody up and get them laughing and crying and, break the walls down a little bit before you just jump into Jesus.
Good.
So who's going to lead an activity? Who's going to speak? Who's ultimately going to share the gospel with the group that's coming in?
Yeah. That's great. And a lot of times, and I've seen this, and I know you have too, the person who comes up to button it up at the very end to say, wasn't that incredible? Today may be your day to think about the same thing or to make a decision about the same thing, is often the person who welcomes everybody on the front end, right? It's kind of a front and a back door. Hey,
that's right.
So glad you're here. Let me tell you exactly what we are so you're not bamboozled.
Yep.
This really is who we are.
Yep.
And my friend so-and-so is going to come up and actually share just a moment of what God's done in their life.
That's right.
Bang, right? And then they come back up and say, man, you heard their good news. You heard their story.
Yep.
You've heard about what Jesus can do in somebody's life. Maybe today's your day.
Yep.
And it's really important to me, and I know it is to you too, that is prepared for. That we don't prepare for food, lights, fun, activity, even speaker, and not prepare in the same amount of work in, okay, who's really going to break it down so people have an opportunity to respond.
That's right. That's right. I like it. Well, and having some response cards or some decisions
And
cards.
pens with them.
Some pens with them right there so people can respond and you can know who is making that decision and beginning their walk with Christ. So that's also important. I would also say, who are you inviting? So you're not just going to, as a club of 10 or 20 or 30 or 50, walk out into the halls and then come back the next week and expect there to be 100 without being intentional. So who are you inviting?
And we have tools like Your 5.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Who are your 5 that the students have been praying for? Their 5 that they've been praying for.
Yep.
Right? Because don't be so arrogant that you don't think you need God's help in that.
Yep.
Right? God's going to help you and give you opportunities to go say, hey, next week we're gonna have a thing. We would love for you to come. I don't do the religious thing. Great, me neither. Come and just experience good news.
That's right.
Right. Let's talk about it. But don't be prepared with your 5. Think about it.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, if you invite a football team in or a wrestling team or the drama club, spring play's over, celebrate them. And invite one of the members, a theater person, to be the one who shares the gospel that day because they can relate to that group of students or have a former football player. The ideas are endless of what you can do. Invite the senior class in and have a former homecoming king or queen come back and share the gospel from class.
All of it reminds me of text out of Mark that I've been reading this month, thinking about good soil, right? Soil that's scorched. And I think that we at times think that the soil is going to be good no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And so we just show up and we share good news and we pound right through it, and that's the club, right? I did my job.
Yep.
And the reality is, we have to prepare the soil for the seed that we're about to plant. And that's both in my heart and in my life. I've got to prepare myself, again, to remember what Jesus has done for me, as well as prepare the room, prepare the atmosphere, right?
Correct.
To me, all of that looks like what Jesus said when he said, hey, there's going to be all types of soil, and some's going to be scorched, some going to be trampled on, what kind of soil are you preparing inside your heart and inside your school for the week that's about to come? It feels almost more important than Invite Week if I was just speaking out loud, right? Just going for it.
It's very important. These first 2 weeks are preparation. They are building the lighthouse so that we can bring light to the dark world in the weeks to come. It's good. If we invite and connect.
I like it.
I like it too. I like you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. It's 2022. I have a New Year's resolution to be nice to you, remember?
Wow.
I was just nice to you.
Wow. I'll write that down. It may be the last time that happens this year.
It will be the last time it happens this year.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thanks for once again joining us on the podcast.
It's good to be here.
It is, and we look forward to seeing you, hearing from you. Please post, comment, share, all those things. Give us a 5-star rating, and then, continue to give us some feedback on things that you've used for those first 2 weeks, and whatever app you use for your podcast.
Yes, and while we have plans for the podcast, those plans are not set in hard stone yet at this point in time. So if there's something that we're missing, I'll open that up with your comment. What would you like to hear on this podcast? We would love to hear from you about some topics and how we can best reach a generation with the gospel.
Yeah, we should all be clear. He never asked me that question, so I'm glad that he's asking you.
That's right. I want to keep it on a good note.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Later.